Well, welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by writer Nick Parlin. It's good to see you. And director Damian Alpizar. It's good to see you as well.
What's up, man? How you doing?
And their film, The Other Side's going to be playing Shriekfest. So can you give people an idea of what The Other Side is? And, you know, you can't get into too much detail since it's a short. You don't give away the whole movie.
Well, we can't. I mean, you're right. We don't want to get into too much detail about the short, but the good thing is that the short is in itself a tease to a much bigger picture, because Nick and I are actively working on the feature aspect of it. So this short has done its job of convincing people that they want to see more. So that's a good thing. So
definitely.
Hopefully when people see this at Shriekfest, they'll understand why people want to see more.
Yeah, it's interesting because actually, in my notes when I was watching it, I thought it felt like it could be expanded. It could be part of a bigger thing.
Yeah, Nick and I have spent a better part of what would you say, Nick, on the script?
3 years. 3 years. I mean, we had a script, and we started showing it to people, and they're like, hey, I love this, but I don't like this small thing. And then we went back and changed that small thing. And then they're like, well, now I don't like this. So after, ping ponging, I think we pretty much got the script to a good place. We sent it out for coverage and got a pretty high rating, high 80s. And, the reader had a lot to say about it. She said, it's a roller coaster ride from hell, is what she said. But she said at the same time, there's this love story, where it's like, it's kind of gives the Crow-esque vibes, so she really, really enjoyed it. And a lot of people, are giving it good praise right now.
Have you guys watched it with an audience before?
We have. We've small audiences, obviously. Shriekfest would probably be the largest audience that we get to watch it with. So it'd be interesting. I would feel, because obviously as developers for the film, we've seen it enough times. If I could, I would just set my chair at the front of the screen and looking back at the audience as opposed to watching the film. But that might be awkward.
Yeah. That would be awkward for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Along those lines, is it when you are editing, you film it, you edit it and everything, and you see it so many times, do you lose perspective of after a while, or is it easy to stay focused of like what works? And
I mean, I think every story is written, multiple times. There's the script, then there's the production, and then there's the post. And I think that when you're looking at it and you do watch it a number of times, you always, I don't think any film is made in a vacuum. Every person that works on the film has their small trusted circle that they bring in. And some people they bring in earlier because they can look at a rough cut and they understand it's a rough cut and no, the effects aren't there. And that's going to look better later. And then you bring in those people later on who have a fresh perspective because they hadn't seen it throughout the development. So they're seeing it for the first time. And everyone has an opinion. So you have to say, okay, well, what's true to the vision that we wanted? But, let's not be egotistical and not just throw out every opinion. Some people, especially if you're bringing them into your circle, you're trusting that they like the kind of films that you're trying to make. So I always look at it like if I was making, as we're making The Other Side, I'm not going to show it to perhaps a romantic comedy fan. They might not like it because it's just not their genre. So you kind of get like-minded people to look at it and then kind of, fine tune it to a point where you're happy with it. But yeah, you do have to step away from it sometimes, as the person, whether after you've gotten, all the opinions, you've done your thing, you have to kind of step away. I think when we were done editing, and it was going through the visual effects process, that allowed us some time to step away from the edit for a while. And then when we came back and looked at it again, we're like, you know what? It could use this, or maybe we held on that scene a little too long. Now that we're looking at it, maybe because we loved it so much, we love the scene so much, hold on to it longer. Like, nah, we should cut away from that sooner. So yeah, you do have to step away from it at some point.
So you said you were writing it out for over a 3-year period, and you want it to be, expanded. Was that always the plan? Like, we're going to make this short to show what we can do, and then hopefully we can make the feature at some point?
Yeah. I had asked a guy that I know, I said, hey, I know that you dabble in a lot of different things. Would you like to invest in a movie? And he said, well, I mean, I've never been asked to invest in a movie before. So he got the script, he read the script, and he says, hey, I know nothing about this world, but I'm going to give you X. And what I want you to do is pick a scene from the script and film that scene. And then you could use that scene to shop around at the film festivals and investors and executive producers and try to get them to be like, oh, I want to throw money at this, and that was the plan. And then all of a sudden people are like, hey, I could see it going here. I could see action figures. I can see posters. I can see a haunted house. And it rapidly expanded through that, that process.
Had you guys, either of you, been on the festival circuit before? Had you had short films at the festivals?
I have been in the producing seat around festivals. I've had my first short film was obviously in a festival, but it was only a local festival. It was just here. We didn't expand it beyond our local community. This will be the first one that we've taken, around to national and much larger venues, primarily because it's a larger project. The ones that we did work on and the ones that I've produced and worked on have done some pretty good rounds. But normally I was in the either the visual effects supervisor chair or I was in the producing chair. This one, being in the directing chair, and this one being Nick, who wrote the short for this. So this would be the one that, as far as together, this is our first one working on together, but it definitely is not the last, and it definitely has gone. It's done pretty positively so far. So we're hoping that, especially with things being virtual, right. So there was a whole, you don't get the exact same feel of an audience watching it on a big screen. So this will be, it'll be real nice to see it, again, have an audience view it on the big screen and see how it was meant to be seen.
Yeah. Did you guys film it before the pandemic? And so it was.
We had filmed it in September of 2019, and it was a slow burn with the editing because our editor broke her ankle and then all of a sudden couldn't do her regular job, and then she has little ones at home that she has to tend to, and then it was a slow process, but it eventually got done, and here we are.
Right.
Yeah. The worst thing for short films is to die in the post-production void, which happens a lot. So we wanted to make sure that, especially with everyone having to be, luckily it was in post by the time the pandemic and stuff came around, because let's face it, luckily at that point everyone started getting used to working remote anyways. So we were able to get the post-production done, and that was helpful. But again, all the festivals, we're so happy that people are going back to the movie theaters and going back to festivals, because that's really the lifeblood of cinema. That's where new artists can showcase and flex their muscles and then grow into the field of going out into cinema. And this is supporting that from the ground up.
How did you two guys meet?
My mentor happens to work. He actually happens to go and play poker or whatever at the casino where Nick works at. Nick is a talented person. He's not just a writer, but also a poker dealer, a magician, comedian. He's got a lot of different talents. And I guess they struck up a conversation, and then he calls me up and he says, "Hey, I got this guy, Nick. He's got a script for, it was a completely different project, not this one. He's a good guy. I'm not into that. You're more into that kind of stuff. See what he can do and take care of him." And that's what's been going on ever since. We became friends. We got to work on these projects together. the project that he originally had was a TV series, and I'm just not of the TV world yet. I do commercial work, but I do not do sitcom stuff, not yet. And all of our connections are really more into the film narrative. Even the production company that we're working with now.
I can't see the other side as a sitcom. I'm not sure that'll work.
No,
Yeah, no.
definitely not. You know,
Who dies today? Everybody.
who did she kill today? You know?
By the way, Nick, what's your favorite card game?
Well, I mean, dude, like I graduated high school and literally somebody's like, I know a way you can make $40 to $50 an hour, you know, without an education. And I'm like, okay, here we go. The whole, I mean, what do you want me to do? A Verizon salesman or something, you know, and I have to climb in the company. And he's like, no, you can deal poker. And I'm like, okay. So I went to like a 5-week course, learned how to deal poker. And I have literally dealt poker for 20 years up until this year. And, I mean, I've all like, you know, even in high school, I was acting, and like he said, I'm a magician as well. So I've been in the arts and the entertainment pretty much my entire life, you know, but, you know, I decided to, you know, give writing a try. And when I had written The Other Side initially, I had showed it to Damian, and Damian read it and said, I like it, but the dialogue has got to be punched up, you know, and we punched up the dialogue, and, you know, that's how pretty much it all began, you know.
Interesting. You would think being the magician stuff, you would want to be in front of the camera as a performer.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never thought that I would be behind the scenes and learning all of the trades from behind the scenes, you know, from the boom operating to the editing to DIT, all that stuff. And I mean, I would like to, of course, if I'm going to dive into this industry, learn like every little field that I can, you know, to be accustomed to it, especially producing a film, you know. So, you know, I met so many people along the way dealing poker. I mean, you've got the regulars, you've got like the snowbirds that come in. I used to deal the World Series of Poker in Vegas. And I mean, I've dealt to some like big time celebrities like, you know, Paul Rudd, Will Ferrell, you know, Pamela Anderson. I mean, like hundreds of them, you know, and it's amazing all of the people that you meet, you know, especially in that field, you know.
Yeah. You should see the new Paul Schrader film, Card Counter. I saw it in the theater last week. But.
I did. As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because the executive producer of that film executive produces a lot of Digital Caviar's films. Digital Caviar is the production company that did our short film, and it's ready to produce the feature film. You know?
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. So it's a small world, you know.
And for people who don't know, The Other Side's a very dark film, and the opening really catches you right away. It's really gruesome, and the effects are really cool. Who worked on the effects?
Well, my background is visual effects. I started off as a animator, and worked into graphics and animation for commercials and TV. And then that naturally moved into, just augmentation and removal of things, and then eventually just full blown visual effects. So having worked on a couple of, films and doing visual effects for that, from that side of it, from a supervisor side of it, it's kind of one of those challenges when you have a short film. You kind of go with what are your assets? What do you have that's available to you? What are you best at? And what can you get done with a limited budget? And that's where you start pulling in favors. You start asking, people that who can cook really well to make, really good, crew meals. So that way you're saving some money there. But when it came to visual effects and cutting people out, I have a couple of people that I work with on a normal basis, but we were able to tap in. I couldn't direct and visual effects supervise. So we were able to tap into a gentleman by the name of Adam Howard, who, this guy's done everything. I mean, he's done Star Wars, Titanic. He's worked on a bunch of different films from top to bottom. Birdman. I mean, he's worked on a bunch of stuff. And he was able to help us solve a technical issue. How do you shoot a mirror without having it there? And how do you get that reflection? And there's a mathematical problem to be solved with two cameras shooting simultaneously from a reflected angle. But then the compositing and things of that nature. I mean, I worked with Matt and did rotos and brought in the fire effects and whatever the things are. So, a lot of that compositing was done in-house, my house. And then some of the stuff was done with, again, with Matt and so on and so forth. So we did the effects. My company, 208 Monkeys, did the effects on it. And it was part of the reason why it was also in post-production for a while, because we didn't have time. We shot in 2 days. A hurricane had come through and made us move an entire day, which made us lose half of our crew. So we didn't have time to, in one particular scene, no spoilers, there's a roof behind her, and that roof gets replaced with something completely different. And that's just rotoscoping. It's just, there was no green screen or nothing. That's just frame by frame. So I'm pretty happy that we were able to pull that off, but that was within our wheelhouse. If I was not a visual effects person, I would have freaked out trying to figure out how to do that.
Will you guys work, hopefully, with a lot of the same cast members who, may or may not live and the same crew when you do the feature?
We'll definitely have a lot of the same crew. The cast members, some of them may end up in a different role. The thing is that when it comes to expanding to a feature, and this is just the hardcore business side of things, sometimes you can bring over your actors from a short film to a feature. And sometimes what ends up happening is that you have the powers that be, and that's the financiers, the producers, the sales agents, the distributors, and they're saying, we need that role to be replaced by somebody who has some sales clout. And that's just the business side of things. So you try to find a way to always reach back and grab somebody and help them up the ladder as much as possible. And then sometimes you got to be like, well, this time we may have to replace that role with someone who is a little bit more marketable at this point to help the movie get going, especially one like this one. So, you look at I look at a lot of films like, trying to think of one right now off the top of my head, but I can't think of one. Let's go with The Purge. Let's just go with the first Purge. We know one actor, Ethan Hawke. One actor in it. The rest of the actors you may not seen in other places, but they're fantastic performances. So it carries the film, and you're always going to need that, especially when you're coming out as an independent filmmaker. You're going to probably need that one actor or a couple of actors to help carry the weight of the film, to help sell it. I mean, that's just a sales piece at the end of the day.
Mm.
Yeah, and 2 out of the 4 actors roles in that film, her and the detective. I mean, we would have to get somebody pretty well established to drive the sales of the film. So, we obviously all the 4 people that we cast are phenomenal at what they do.
They are.
They might be picked for smaller roles in the film, but they knew that going in. Hey, look, we might get blah to be in this film to be her. So there's a really, really good chance that you might not be her in this, but we certainly thank you. And of course we'll try our best to accommodate you in the feature,
And this is something I got to actually say about actors in general, because your partner is an actor and she's over there in LA doing some stuff. The dedication that these actors put into even these short films and these film festivals, this is their real. And as filmmakers, we want to respect and make sure that they get to shine. And I got to say that these actors, when they stepped up to the plate for this short film, they shined. They put it all on the table. I got to give it to them on that one. It was really, really wonderful taking some of these actors who have I've never played that role before and going, well, let's try it out, and just killing it in the moment. So that was a blessing. And they were all local right here out of the Tampa Bay area. We didn't fly anybody in. They're all 100% talented people here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Did you know the any of the cast, or were they people that came in for auditions?
One person I knew because I at one point had taken acting classes, not to be an actor. I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to learn to speak better actor.
That makes sense, because a lot of people I interview will talk about an actor's director who comes from acting and knows how to talk to the actors.
Yeah, and I took it for a couple of years, and I dove deep into it, and I met a very talented person in there. In fact, Taylor Gerard, he's the one that plays the detective, and I auditioned. We auditioned a number of people. In fact, John Paul, who plays Monroe, auditioned originally to be the detective. And while we were sitting there and we were watching him, I was like, man, I don't know. He has a vulnerability to him. He's kind of a big dude. I talked to Nick. I was like, hey, what do you think about him switching it to Monroe? And so we told him, I said, hey, can you go back and just kind of prepare and play and come back and play Monroe? He's like, I didn't prepare for it. I'm like, yeah, just try it. So he went back there, and sure enough, he came back out and he just killed it. And I was like, there was a sense of vulnerability and his toughness that was going to be necessary to feel, man, if this guy's threatened by whatever is attacking him, you need to watch out. Like, this guy does not look like he folds easily. Right. And so that's why we were very happy with that selection. So yeah, I mean, some of them we kind of, local film community, you're going to run into the actors who have been in other people's films. So you may have seen them here or there, but never had the chance to work with them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it boiled down to.
No, Damian had mentioned you had written like a sitcom. He said maybe that wasn't his thing, so you went with the horror movie. But are you a horror movie fan, Nick?
Oh, gigantic. I think gigantic would be an understatement. I mean, I grew up. I mean, I was 8 years old watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's probably why I'm so hit in the head today, so whacked out, because my parents would let me watch Jason, and pretty much anything, The People Under the Stairs. I mean, I watched it all. I mean, I think horror happens to be my favorite genre, to be honest, and the beauty behind horror is you don't really need a whole lot of character development. You just introduce the character, kill them off, and then, good guy hopefully kills bad guy in the end, or, if it doesn't, it goes into number 2, 3, and 4, but, I'm a huge horror fan. Yeah.
I was the same way. My mom, a single mom, but she took me to the drive-in with my older brother who's 9 years older, seeing all the, and I think Night of the Living Dead's the first movie I remember seeing, the original Night of the Living Dead. Not when it came out. I'm not that old, but it was playing in the 80s. But I told this story before, but the first memory I've seen at the movies was at the drive-in, and the pickup truck blows up and they start eating the guys. And I was upset. And my mom said, "Oh, they're just having a barbecue. Don't worry." And then I was fine.
I like your mom's sense of humor.
Right. And I'm totally fine. And, how about yourself, Damian? Are you a horror movie fan?
I am. And this is where Nick and I, we balance each other on style. While Nick he loves the, slash and that kind of stuff. And he gets the 6 scenes. He comes up with 6 scenes. I am definitely more the character development type of horror. I'm the opposite in that regards. I like my horror to, like, for example, like It Follows, and I like my horror to have, don't get me wrong, Nightmare is still one of my favorite throwback horrors all by far. But I still like my horror to have that sense of dread. I don't mind a slower burn. So our styles mix to make something that gives you both character and gives you those moments of scare and dread that are, that pay off the character. I think that's the other thing about good horror, is that if you care about the characters and they suffer horribly, well, then that's horror. It
means more.
Yeah, it means more. So the psychological brain F, I don't want to curse on anything. The psychological brain fart is making you really care about something and then killing it horribly. and then torturing them throughout for an hour and a half or for 15 minutes or forever, whatever you do. That's, to me, is true horror. It's messing with people.
That's it. That's the good thing though about horror. I think there's different styles. It's like you can watch like a comedy horror, like Turn the Living Dead, or you watch something totally silly. You watch like a genuinely good movie, but it's horror, or just some slasher like Nick likes, where everybody's just getting killed. So I kind of like all that stuff. It really depends what kind of mood I'm in. So I think that's what's cool about horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, I can get behind Shaun of the Dead too all day.
Oh yeah. For my opinion, with the horror comedy, it has to work as a horror movie too.
Yeah,
like the horror has to, like the zombies look really good in Shaun of the Dead.
Right.
Big time.
Yeah. And you just talked about the horror. I mean, the basis of the horror in your film is real life horror, and so can you just talk about the idea of taking something, the basic idea is something that's actually happening, and then putting in like a fantastical world.
Yeah. Tampa, Florida, most people don't know this. And I've actually lived here pretty much my entire life. I mean, I moved to LA for 2 years in 2015, but I never knew that Tampa is one of the leading countries in the entire world for human sex trafficking. We have like the Tampa Port Authority, which is where all the shipping docks come in and the loading and unloading. And then we have like massage parlors here. And some people say we are the strip club capital of the world because we have a lot of strip clubs, and that is where a lot of the trafficking is going on. And I had learned about that, and Damian and I collaborated, and we're like, how about we take this urban legend that's pretty much nobody has ever tapped into and add the human trafficking aspect into it, where it's a complete race against the clock. Like, this woman has to try to find her child before she's sold to a foreign land, and you just never see her again. So, we took that aspect and pretty much, made it what it is today.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, there's, I would actually harken back to another film that did something similar. And every horror, I mean, if you really think about it, in every horror, there is a message of sorts.
I think in genre like sci-fi and horror, most of it is about social or political issues, within the
but without beating people over the head, obviously. Right. So our thing is, for example, if you look at, and it's barely touched on in, for example, like Nightmare, Freddy was a pedophile. I mean, that's just what he was. And there are, when it comes to our selection in horror, the thing was, who do you feel bad for at what point? Do you feel bad for the monster? Do you feel bad for the monsters and the human monsters, or do you feel bad for the horror monster? I mean, there's a bit of a conflict there, and and it expands even further, obviously. But here you have a situation where you have two monsters in the room, and you're kind of like, okay, which one am I voting for? Which one am I going for? Which one do I want to live or die or more? And I think that's where that's what intrigued us about expanding this world. Was in a world of monsters, who's the real victim? And sadly, when it comes to things like the human trafficking aspect of things, the victim are typically, and sadly, mostly women and mostly children under the age of like 14 or 16. So it's not something that we're very proud of. And it's most cities with a port. Tampa is one of them, but I would say almost any city with a port has to deal with that because it's just easy access for in and out to get the children out of there. So it's a national problem, Yeah,
the international problem, really.
Yeah, big time.
They're not all being abducted by aliens. Sorry, a lot of people like to be like, all these missing people are being abducted by aliens. I'm like, no. Sometimes it's worse. An alien would actually be nice.
So the other side's playing Shriekfest. It's coming up the end of this month and into October. And you guys are both going to be there, apparently.
Yep. All 4 days.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. That's the main thing I missed during the pandemic are the film festivals. I want everyone to be safe, obviously, but I do miss going to the film festivals. And that's cool that this one, people can go and actually not just watch on the big screen, but there's something about watching movies with an audience, especially horror movies or comedies, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're laughing in a crowd or you're scared in a crowd, it just adds to the emotional experience. So we're excited. We're thankful that you guys selected our films for this festival, and we're excited to be there and talk more with anybody about what's coming up, and hopefully we get to see some other horror films that we get scared at, and that's going to be great too.
Yeah. It's always a good thing too about the film festivals. You can meet, even people just like the movies, but you can meet other people you might eventually work with, down the road.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Networking. Yeah, I love that. I met a guy at the Texas Frightmare weekend back in like 2012, and I'm friends with him till to this day. And you meet people from all different walks of life. It's pretty awesome.
I've been to Texas Frightmare a couple of times, but what was that, Damian?
I was saying, not to mention horror fans are, like-minded people.
Exactly.
We're all a little bit twisted. We got a screw or two loose. So you get them all in the same room and just start talking horror, and it just sounds like a great time.
Yeah. And even though everybody might be a little weird, I think horror fans are very accepting of other people.
Oh yeah.
But it's perfectly fine to walk around in a horror convention with a crazy mask on. So we've been doing it since long before 2020.
Right. I actually have too. Yeah. So it's not a big deal to me.
Yeah.
So where can people follow the other side or yourselves to see what you guys are up to?
Well, there's Facebook, and there's obviously Instagram. So our Instagram, oh boy, I should have this memorized by now, right?
I know it. Thankfully,
there you go.
It's the Other Side feature.
There you go.
On IG, we're on IG a lot more than we're on Facebook, but especially in the next probably couple weeks leading up until principal photography, we're going to be posting on the Other Side feature. That's the hashtag for IG. You're going to see a lot of really awesome stuff come out.
Very cool.
One in particular that we can't talk about, but hopefully by Shriekfest it's a done deal. But we all know how that goes. But we're like so stoked, but we just can't talk about it now.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations being in Shriekfest, and I know you're not supposed to say good luck. Break a leg, I guess, on the upcoming feature. Yeah,
chop an arm.
Yeah. That works better. Yeah. Very cool. It's cool to talk to both of you.
Pleasure talking to you too, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interview.